Yeah, we're live. All right, guys, welcome to, I think, what's now the fourth master stream. And these are, I think, kind of the first of their kind, because I've been doing masterminds like this where I've been inviting other entrepreneurs onto calls like this where we just kind of talk about business and share ideas. And what I love is that everybody kind of has their own superpower. And so what's really, really amazing is that now we are able to stream these out, and we're able to allow people to kind of watch in and be a fly on the wall. And it seems like the guests keep getting more powerful and more powerful every week. So I'm excited to dig in with you guys. So let's start with some of the fresh, the newbies here. Jeremy Adams is here, and Jeremy is actually a 30 under 30. What would you guys call like a winner, a like badass? I don't know. He's on the 30 under 30, but then decided wasn't going to stop there, and has now been on a mission with his new company that he's working on called Unicorn Innovations, that has just been tearing up the digital marketing space and teaching things like Facebook ads and messenger marketing. And I know they're coming out with tons of new courses and stuff. So Jeremy, welcome to the show. And the title of our call is kind of influence and what it all means. And you were someone who at a very young age kind of got maybe thrown into that space. So can you kind of catch us up and kind of fill in the blanks on who Jeremy Adams is and kind of what you're up to these days?
Yeah, and thank you for the great intro, by the way. In regards to what to call the 30 under 30 people, I just think it's a great recognition, right? I mean, it's a lot of hard work, and most of us really don't need pat on the backs, right? Like we don't care about stuff like that, but it is nice to have some recognition for busting ass and losing sleep and having no social life and those type of things. So in regards to myself, I grew up in a relatively low income family, and just wanted something different for myself and wanted something different for my future family and people I was going to be around. So I just started busting ass at a young age, was waiting tables at 16 and started making good cash. Fast forward at 20, I started working with a guy that started a lot of businesses here in Central Florida and got some great experience and knowledge from him. And then at 22, we co-founded a company called Prestige Food Trucks. And that company did pretty well. It still does pretty well. We merged with our biggest competitor 2.5 years ago, and that's the company that was actually featured on Forbes 30 under 30. But then over the last few years, I've been in the digital marketing and primarily the customer acquisition space. Max and I had our agency with Kevin Harrington, who was on the first couple seasons of Shark Tank. And then we exited that, and a little under a year ago, we started Unicorn Innovations, and primarily focus on Unicorn IQ, which is our education and training side of our business. So we're just super pumped, lots of really exciting things in the works, lots of exciting new trainings and courses and partnership opportunities. And it's just, we're super fortunate and just excited to see what happens. So.
Huge stuff. Yeah. I love that you and Max are both, you guys have a great partnership. So that's awesome to see. Rob Fajardo is also in the neighborhood as well. And I got a chance to spend some time with Rob out in San Diego, and I shared this with Hanna as well on a couple of calls, but in the internet marketing space, you meet a lot of people who are frankly not cool people. Like they're just not cool to hang out with. But Rob is like the opposite of that. He is like the most cool guy to be able to hang out with, and is very much the same person in person that you see on all of the videos. And he's got a show called Leave Normal Behind, where they interview, people of all different walks of life and really show young people how to, make a difference in the world. So Rob, you're doing, you do so much shit. Can you fill us in as well on kind of like the gas
Yeah.
on what you're up to these days, man?
Yeah, for sure. I think, so again, yeah, thanks for the introduction. I appreciate to be on these master stream. I even just really enjoy the idea of this master stream, dude. I think this is something that everyone should really start utilizing. This is a pretty good way to use your time. So 3 things that I'm up to. So one is, Leave Normal Behind, which is our brand movement that my brother and I started 3 years ago. The mission of L&B is to inspire others to become the best version of themselves and create things that matter. And we've thrown events from like a 6,000 person concert to a 120 person summit. We're looking to plan like a Knicks game for our members coming up. and want to plan like a bigger summit, 2 or 3 days, sometime in 2018. And we have a TV show too. And then we have a 6-week masterclass where we work with entrepreneurs to increase their influence and monetize their personal brand. And then pretty recently, a lot of my time has shifted to this really cool construction technology project. So those are 3 things that I'm working on.
Yeah, it's hard to keep an entrepreneur down. It's feel like, it's about saying no sometimes. So it's cool to see you dipping your toe into lots of different things. We have some repeat attendees in Jeremy Slate and Hannah. So I'm not going to give the full intro, but Jeremy, you're actually someone who has, what I love about Rob and Jeremy is they make me feel bad every time I see their profile because they have that blue check next to their name. So I know that if I was in high school and I had a blue check next to my name, like, damn, like how much more awesome like life could have been. But Jeremy, you have your own podcast and you have a new brand called Command Your Brand. So I'm gonna throw it to you and maybe you can start the discussion. What does kind of influence mean to you? And you essentially help doctors and kind of these people who aren't in the social media space essentially grow their influence through podcasts. So why is that such like a big part of who you are and kind of what you bring to the world?
Well, first of all, you mentioned Rob and I, and we're both from Jersey, and Jersey's just better anyway. So I'll just say that's the other thing there, man. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, especially now, like influence is what sells. That's the huge thing, and like that's the difference between you being the best at what you do and not making money versus somebody else being the absolute highest expert and not quite as good as you, but they're good. And they've been spent all this time building their public profile, building up press, building up a lot of these things. So they're closing more sales. They're spending less money on ads. They're able to do a lot more things because they have this brand they can just kind of throw power behind. And I think that's the huge difference that a lot of people that have been in business for a while or a lot of brands that have been around for a while are kind of like struggling with now because they don't quite get it. They're like, they don't quite get this whole idea of like playing around on social media, which for those of us, especially like Jeremy and Rob with what they do, they totally get it that the digital space, especially now, you need to be in there, take advantage and grab the real estate before, some of your opportunities dry up.
Yeah, you have to, like, it's kind of a necessity to at least spend time in there and invest time creating a community or being a brand, because a lot of just people are going to look to that when they're going to think about doing business. So I think that's big. Hannah, share with us a little bit with you, because like you got out of the 9-to-5 and you got out of the corporate world, and instead of going like a different route, your route was to like grow your influence. Your route was to start a Facebook group, to create a personal brand, to do all these things that now lead to you kind of having this following and allowing you to have clients and stuff. So for you, why you could very much, there are people who don't utilize influence and aren't very much a public figure, but why was it important for you to kind of be in front of people and capitalizing on this, quote unquote influence?
Yeah, I love what Jeremy's talking about, that the influence is really the secret to growing and scaling anything, which is a huge relief to a, girl from a small town, sort of similar to these stories, that just wants to build community and do something awesome, like do something big in the world. And so I wish it was super strategic when I started out with my Facebook group. In hindsight, though, I have to be honest and say I was just looking for support and feeling like I was the only crazy person, in this entrepreneurial space. And so it just so happened that Facebook became this really great platform and marketing tool. And now what I'm doing is helping people understand that real people can take what they already have and use tools that already exist to start, monetizing their passion project or scaling their influence, or now really taking entrepreneurs to that next level of like, you figured out we can earn money. Okay, everyone here, many people listening understand that there are ways to earn money outside of the 9-to-5. But how do you create this legacy or position yourself so that you aren't like hustling or like, spending so much money on ads? So super excited to be here. I think that, as always, Hector has brought together a group that will vibe well together.
Yeah, we got lucky. So Jeremy and Rob, I want to throw it to you. Like, when you guys were thinking about creating your you know, the next step, the next chapter in your career, where did you see influence kind of playing a role, and how did that come into play?
You know, so for me, you know, influence was actually something that was actually pretty deeply embedded into my childhood, and it wasn't until I got into college that I was able to become self-aware of the importance of influence. So I remember, you know, being like 3-4 years old, and you know, looking up to Derek Jeter and Mike Piazza, right, being from New Jersey, New York, right, and at a very young age, I just remember, you know, this very innocent thought, which was, you know, if Derek Jeter and Mike Piazza said anything, people would listen to them just because, you know, he's Derek Jeter and Mike Piazza. Oh, I want people to listen to me when I say things, and I want to say great things. I'm athletic. I want to be like Derek Jeter and Mike Piazza. And there's the next like 17, 18 years of my life, like playing sports, like I played in college, 2 sports. And it wasn't until I got into college where I was like, wait a second, you know, there's other vehicles that you can have influence, right? Entrepreneurship being one of them, and the internet being another, to, you know, build a platform to spread, you know, positivity and growth, and really allow people to leave normal behind, you know. So, you know, influence to me, the definition is you have to think of yourself like having a social bank account, you know, like social currency. And we all know that, like, we couldn't go to our real bank and make a withdrawal, you know, greater than the deposit that we received or put in there. You know, we know we can't take on more than we put in, you know. So influence, I think, is depending on how much you put in, you know, for others, depends how much others will do for you, right? And if you put in a lot of that social currency, well, then offline, that's where it's really important, right? It's like you have a lot of followers, but if you can't get 10 of them to congregate to actually do what you want them to do, then that's not really influential. You know, that's just having a large following. You know, somebody with influence, like, actually makes someone do something in their everyday life offline, you know, in their mind, in their heart, with their hands, with their feet, you know, get somebody to move or take action. So, and I think the way that you do that is somebody feeling like you've given them enough value in a certain way, you know, that the ask that you're asking for is less value than you've put in. You know, anytime you try to ask for something more than you've deposited, you know, it just doesn't work. So I think influence is a big deal, you know, and that's, and how that bridges over into, you know, politics now and pop culture is something that we're really passionate about. And, you know, just influence overall, I think, is very important.
Jeremy Adams, I'm curious for you, if you had seen, like, you know, if you went before you had gotten to this place where you were, you know, an influencer, like if that was on your radar, because I find that for some people it's very much a point, because I, like Rob, I was like, you know, I saw Justin Timberlake and I was like, Jesus, I can't sing, but I want to be able to, like, you know, have that kind of impact or influence. So for me, the only thing that I could do was sell something. But Jeremy, I was like, where did it fit in for you? And was it after you had, you know, a large amount of success that you thought, you know, it was important to kind of do something with this influence, or was that always part of your kind of psyche and journey?
For me, and Jeremy Slate and Rob knows this about me, like, and I think both of them have done a great job in building large followings. Like, I probably have the lowest number of followers on this whole fucking live stream, but because I'm so focused on quality. I also have 20, 30 people that I can call right now that if I needed a 6 or 7 figure check to invest in my business, I know they would listen to me and be open to partnering, right? And just, so I've been quality focused. I've been focused on spending my time influencing other influencers and not having that broad approach. I mean, I just started posting a lot more on social. A lot of people most people still don't know who I am, but the right people for me right now in my life know who I am. And I've been focusing on connecting with the highest quality people to further my career that way. And because of that, the influencer thing started coming naturally. I mean, I I rarely do videos, and now I'm getting a little bit more into it, right? It's something I'm more passionate about because I feel like I'm at the place where I am able to truly help people and inspire people. But for me, I just focus on building my business first and foremost. And from building the business with no intention to create influence, Jeremy, how are you able to build this multi-million-dollar business? Can you help me do this? What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this? And then naturally that came second. For years and years, I never had intention on actually trying to influence people. It came a little bit more naturally. And then over the last, the Forbes thing for me was obviously really big, and that kind of added a bunch of credibility. But the previous 5 years, I just been busting ass to get up to this point. And then now all of a sudden it's, okay, this guy is like, someone knows what he's talking about, right? And for the future, we'll see. I mean, I'll continue to talk with great guys like you and girls, and continue to help any way I can. But, influence for me, and that's why in the message earlier, I think influence for each person is different. I like spending time with super high level people and influencing them. And it's okay if people don't know who I am. And I'm totally fine with that. But I know people that manage and have thousands of employees and have millions of followers and stuff like that. And I'm okay being behind the scenes because I can kind of pull some strings and no one even know who I am. And I actually get more enjoyment out of that. So it's really interesting. And I'm curious to hear what everyone else's thoughts are.
Yeah, and I think I agree with Jeremy on that point in terms of that's really what it comes down to, right? Is does your influence actually manifest into something, And I do believe, and having like a little bit of background in influencer marketing, like with fidget spinners, when we launched fidget spinners, we worked with a lot of influencers, obviously. And then prior to fidget spinners, I worked with an influencer marketing company called the Role Model Club, where we would like connect influencers with brands. And because of the algorithm changes, that's really what it is like understanding influence on the social media now it's not about width anymore. It's truly about depth, right? Because you're not going to reach as many people as you could. That's just not going to happen. Like the way that you're truly going to grow your page now is being able to connect through your phone, realizing that instead of 5,000 people seeing your post, maybe 1,000 people are going to see your post. But those 1,000 people, because the algorithm, are going to be pretty good people that should see it. And if you can do a good job at remembering that those two people have 2 eyes, a mouth, a heart, like 2 arms, 2 legs, like they can actually do something. 1,000 people is more than enough. And I like what Jeremy was saying as like an influencer of influencers, right? Because other guys like, Dave Meltzer, who's another like a thought leader entrepreneur, is a guy who's similar, right? It's like his following's not growing up as much, but he's a guy that Gary Vee looks up to, or the owner of the Dolphins, or, Reggie Bush is on his stuff, Tony Hawk, So I think it depends on who your following is too, as much as, how many, because having a lot of people that don't really amount to anything, what's more beneficial,
100% agree with that, Rob.
Yeah.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah, I want to build on that a little bit. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. So because my philosophy as I stumbled into this, like growing a community can change people's lives. And guess what? I don't need 1 million people looking at my video. I have the power to leave a legacy or make an impact in one person that can go out and reach 1,000 people, and their 1,000 people can go out and reach. And so I love what Jeremy's saying about, like, I'm fine being behind other folks, but having that perspective of influence that isn't just based on follows or likes is so important. And it's much more inspiring for me and people that I know to take the perspective of the ripple effect as opposed to like trying to hack the algorithm.
Well, and I think too, like the big trend in like what influences now is like, it's really weird because I think like when we were younger, it wasn't cool to like be a teacher and all that kind of stuff, like what I went to school for. But it's interesting that like influence is now like becoming teaching, right? Like you grow your influence by your ability to actually teach others to do what you have successfully done. And if you look at a lot of the big influencers out there, like Cardone is teaching sales, Lewis Howes is teaching everything. You have a lot of people out there that are they're able to share that knowledge, and the actual knowledge that they're sharing is the influence. And I think that's what's really interesting is the kind of currency, I guess, has changed.
Well, I always wonder, I've been on this kind of like, for the longest time, I was telling myself, I need to create a vlog. I need to create a vlog. I need to create a vlog. You know, I was like, damn, I need to create a vlog and be as, do this Gary V thing or whatever. And I realized my life is not that fucking exciting, like in that way, right? Like I have different value to share. Like I sit at my desk all day and like Jeremy kind of said earlier, like work, and like that's what it is. And I think that being okay and shifting, I realized that, and so I just doubled down and just started teaching more. And I've done, I don't know, like 200 live streams, since then. But like it's finding out who like we are and like what we actually provide, and I think being comfortable enough with that to be willing to put that out there. So I'm curious for you guys, was it as an easy thing for you to just kind of become this public figure? Because I don't think that that everybody's capable of putting themselves out there, right? I think there's a lot of fears and limitations that hold people back.
I think there's levels to it. I think even something I struggle with now, right? Like I freestyle rap all the time. Like I want to sing. I know that we're going to start releasing more music. When we were younger, my brother and I used to put out these like funny dance videos that would go like super viral around town. And man, we caught so much shade like early on, like 15, 16 was just like a lot of resistance. And just looking back to that time, I was like, wow, like I stopped creating content in that way, because true influence online, right, is like how authentic you can have that relation of like who you are offline with who you are online, right? That's someone that's influential. Is if who you are offline is who you are online, you're going to like set yourself up in a good way. So people just don't want to show themselves, myself included, fully, because you're like, shit, like what was if somebody like makes fun of me, what was if I look like an idiot? What happens if what do my parents think? Am I gonna catch shit from my family? Like I don't really want to catch shit from my family, right? Or like talking about cannabis or something, right? It's like do you want to like share anything, in full, right? Of just all different just the fullness of it, and I think that commitment to it, if you look at anyone that's truly influential, they've just like fully committed to like showing who they are online, and specifically you're looking at like a Jake Paul or Logan Paul, like just their commitment to like just a one-to-one relationship of like what they're doing offline to what they're doing online is like a testament to how they're building such a fast growing following, and just like implementing that principle of just like you're in a business meeting, film it. Like you like singing in the shower, you like singing, like incorporate singing into your stuff. Like,
you're in the woods, film it. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, don't do that.
So
what about for you guys though? Because I know Jeremy, you started a podcast. Hannah, you started a a Facebook group. Jeremy Adams, you're going through this kind of process right now of becoming this kind of more public figure, whereas only the celebrities kind of had to deal with it, and they always see, like, there was all those classic examples of how attention like broke people, like, and how attention like drove people crazy and made them do crazy shit. But all of a sudden regular kids, regular people, us are dealing with the same kind of attention that was only reserved for celebrities. So was that do you guys remember anything about that journey, or anything about being able to be willing to kind of put yourself out there like you guys are now?
Well, I think I want to connect that a little bit to something Rob said, and that's kind of like being who you are. Because my first attempt at doing a podcast was like a royal joke. Like it was horrible. Because like I had failed at a bunch of things. So I decided, I was a life coach, because apparently that's what you do when things don't work out. So I made a podcast to that effect, where I was like telling people all these things they could do, and it lasted for like a month, and it was like the worst thing humanly possible. And it was when I kind of realized, okay, well, that's not really me. Like I'm not like that. Like I'm just trying to like monetize something just to monetize it. And it's like when you start something out like that, there's kind of no point to it. So the second time around, when I actually started my current show, it was learning that, hey, I'm a teacher, man. Everything I do, I end up teaching. And that was kind of the difference. I'm like, well, who are the experts I want to help other people learn from? And it was kind of interesting, because I think the thing that gets forgotten a lot in the world of branding is the thing called positioning. There's a really awesome book by Al Rees called Positioning: The Battle for Your Mind. And it's this idea of every time that you're positioned against a celebrity, your credibility builds a little bit more. And that's why the podcasting space is so awesome in that way. So the more celebrities I interviewed, not only did my knowledge base grow, but my influence grew because I'm seen with them. And at the same time, I'm teaching people from them. So I think that's what's really interesting is there's many different ways to do that. But you also have to be true to who you are. And for me, it was a teacher just figuring out how I could do that.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely relate to that journey. I mentioned the group was like, I feel like a crazy person. I'm in a new city. I'm looking for a community. Facebook has this new option. And then at first it started out just like, oh yeah, like I'll inspire people and write cute things and like whatever. My friends started following, but then exactly that, Jeremy, like inviting people that I admired or saw like doing more in their Facebook group or earning more money than I was. Come on over for an interview. And then, positioning yourself and also learning. I love that sort of hack. And so to come back to Hector's point of like, what is that journey like? It has to be true to you, right? Like, I think everyone's kind of speaking to that because there's so many strategies or 5-step plans or checklists for you to go do something. But ultimately it's going to come down to like, what do you want to talk about? What are you doing in the shower? Because what works in branding and marketing is what you enjoy and what's true to you. Does that help?
Yeah, a bunch.
I think we lost your initial question, but I wanted to build on what, Jeremy and Rob had said.
Well, I think in the shower, I've won a Grammy a couple times, so I'll just go with that.
Congrats.
Jeremy Adams, where did it come for you? Because you always mentioned that it was being like behind the scenes. And so I think that requires a different level of humility. And so I personally, one of my mentors is someone who very similarly does not have a large email list, does not have a large following, but is one of the most highly sought after event facilitators in the world because of, like you said, he's really gone deep rather than wide. So was that always something that you kind of saw for yourself, or was that something that you kind of learned throughout your entrepreneurial journey?
In the spirit of being transparent and authentic, right? I think for me, being around such high level people all the time, and that was just always my focus, I would always compare myself to them. And I was like, well, can't be a brand because I'm not as successful. I don't make as much money. I haven't built businesses. I don't have the following, whatever. So I generated a lot of doubts in that area where just because of that, I was like, I guess that would be, if there's one negative about being around super high level people, is if you do have any sort of self-doubt challenges, like it can magnify those. And I think as entrepreneurs, we all go through those challenges and seasons of life. But that for me was probably one of the biggest challenges, but just breaking through that. And how I broke through that, and this is something that I tell all entrepreneurs at every age now, and I think we touched about it in our podcast interview, Jeremy, like no matter where anybody is, no matter how fucking successful we think they are, or they all have bullshit going on in their lives. And if anything, the more successful they are, the more bullshit they have going on in their lives. And when I was able to figure that out, I was like, we're really just not that different. They're just a few years ahead of me. Like they're just like a little bit more connected, a little bit more experienced, but we're really not that different person. We're not that different skill set. We're very similar. And that was inspiring and gave me the confidence to more put myself out there. Just knowing that even some of the most successful people that we idolize, their kids fucking hate them, or, whatever. They have plenty of challenges. They're not as wealthy as you think. And that's something with a lot of people I've connected with. You think they have all this money, you get really close and they don't really have as much money as you think. And it's a giant show. So like, there's just a lot of stuff like that I'm like, okay, like if they can do it, I can do it, and anybody can do it. It's just about believing that you can, right?
I think that's the conversation you and I are having, I think, was the idea of like mentorship. Because I'm like, who the hell do we know who to follow, man? Like, how do we know who to follow? And that was because I think that's something you've always done super well, is like finding the right person to follow. And I think it's so important to follow somebody that's been there and done that and actually achieve what you wanted to achieve. And that's why I love what you were saying about just finding somebody that's a few steps ahead, man, because at least they know the things I don't know. Like, I don't want to have to figure it out. Like, I don't want to screw up. They've already screwed up. So, yeah.
I would say anybody watching, if I could, like mentors for me have been huge in my life. I mean, they have helped me so much. They continue to help me so much. I'm going to be in Vegas next week with my business coach, who, Hector, like one of your mentors, one of the wealthiest guys I know. I mean, and 99.9% of people on this planet have no fucking clue who he is. And he's totally okay with that. He actually, his goal is to be a billionaire without anybody really knowing him. Right. And that's kind of cool. And like seeing those traits and being around how he's able to influence high level people in his network, but not draw a bunch of attention to himself is something that I really aspire to. And just so anybody watching, especially if you're a new entrepreneur, but any entrepreneur at any level, even if you're 50, you can still have mentors. You need to have people that you look up to that have been there, done that, and that can just kind of hold your hand and say, hey, this is okay. Like what you're going through is not that different than what I went through or what everybody goes through. Like just hearing that from somebody that's been successful for me was huge. Cause I would think to myself, like, I'm not a good entrepreneur. I'm not a good business owner because I'm having challenge A, B, and C, or my employees are quitting, or we're like not as profitable as we need to be. And he's like, dude, that's nothing compared to what I went through. And you know, I'm like, oh fuck. So my situation actually wasn't that bad. So just having those people in your life at any level is gigantic.
Mm-hmm. Totally agreed. The space and the shortcut that a mentor can provide, and is like true in my time or career, I don't know what to call my entrepreneurial journey, is like, okay, so I was doing the Facebook group thing, and to reply to Jim because I enjoyed Facebook and I knew how to use it. That's why I chose that platform. But to have someone be like, you know, you could like use this as a strategy. People call this a funnel. And I was like, oh, I was just in this place of like soaking up so much stuff. And so to have people give me the space to think about like, what do I enjoy? How can I use what I already have? And then the shortcut. So you're not doing the fumbling around like Jeremy said, like, oh, you had it way worse. Oh, I don't want it that bad. Yeah. Help me. Take my hand. It's priceless.
I think we lost Rob. Maybe he's freestyling.
He might be freestyling. Oh,
He's back.
There he is. So one thing that came up, which was just interesting, was how much of a fallacy kind of can happen out there. And I think that was a big challenge for me when I got started, because I was like, who's going to listen to me, right? And even though, you know, before I ever created a Facebook post, I had, you know, trained thousands of people, and, you know, my organization had created millions in revenue before. And I still was like, do I have enough to you know, to actually, like, am I worth listening to? So where do you draw the line, right, between someone who just wants to go out there and start influencing someone and someone who actually has something worthwhile to say? Is there anything to speak to that?
Yeah, I do. I think, you know, and this is even just taking something that Russell Brunson says, you know, in a great book that I highly recommend anybody read in the audience that hasn't read it, which is Expert Secrets. And, you know, getting over that fear of being an expert is, again, something that everyone goes through, even the 7, 8, 9, 10 figure guys and women. Even they question the value that they have. It's just like an interpersonal thing. And what he says is, he talks about that movie Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio, where he's like, for people who haven't seen it, is Leonardo DiCaprio plays a con man who basically does a lot of different roles. He's from like an airplane pilot. I think he's like a poker dealer, and then he also ends up being like a professor at Brigham Young University, and he teaches sociology, and he ends up going the whole entire semester teaching a class of students. And at the end of the semester, he gets caught, and the administration goes, how did you teach the students? You didn't even graduate from college yourself. How could you possibly have taught a college curriculum and how have your students been able to pass their courses? And he goes, oh, that's simple. I just read a chapter ahead. And so I just shared with them the chapter that they needed. You know, and I think when it comes to information, it's wherever you're a chapter ahead of other people, that's the information that you share, right? You share the stuff where you are. And at some capacity, I think everyone is a chapter ahead than others individually. You know, I think everyone can find that thing where they are a chapter ahead, whether it's I'm a chapter ahead in how great of a relationship I have with my siblings, how I treat myself, how organized I am, how I like set up my routine, right? There's like something that you can find that you're a couple chapters ahead than other people. And that's the stuff that you should talk about, right? But it's when you try to start talking to stuff that you're not chapters ahead in that you know, seem inauthentic, disingenuous, and you put a bad taste in people's mouth.
Rob, the person that created college didn't go to college.
That's a good point.
You know, it's so funny though, dude, because that was my experience when I was teaching. My master's is in European history, so they're like, all right, we need an American history teacher. I'm like, okay. So I was always reading the book a week before, and I'm like, George Washington, who's that? Like, it was a lot of like, crazy stuff, and it was like, all right, I have to teach the kids the next week, which is funny because you remember the school I taught at, 'cause it's not too far from you. So it was really, really funny of having to just be a week ahead and just survive.
Absolutely. This is like the whole game of life, whether you're an entrepreneur or a teacher, just be one step ahead and willing to, like find that shortcut or just stay up a half an hour later. And this is how, I mean, maybe we're getting off, but like, I just know that a lot of folks on this live right now are getting started and sometimes feel like, these guys are such big influencers. Of course they can just stay up or read a chapter ahead. But like, as you're designing your offer or your content or whatever the heck you're going to put out there, like just be a half a step ahead or a chapter ahead. Totally agree.
Yeah, what's coming to mind with all of this is like an immersion process. Because I remember before, there was always these periods of like intense learning, right? Intense like hours and hours of mastery where I'd lock myself in my room and not come out until I finished the course or finished the book or whatever it was. So let's as we're kind of wrapping this up and let's kind of maybe give some real maybe strategies or tactics here. If someone actually wants to grow their influence or start to utilize this to build their business and ultimately help more people, where do they start or where did you start? Can someone speak to maybe some steps to getting going?
Yeah, and more specifically, Antoinette is asking, should you build the business before the message or both together? So I think we can probably speak directly to that and what Hector just said.
Do you have some thoughts on that, Hannah?
I thought, yeah. So I think that the first step is always like knowing yourself, like we talked about earlier, and like, how do you communicate? Who do you want to help, or what impact do you want to be talking about or leaving in other people? And then what I have found, and in my experience, is like when I got clear on that, the business and the message and the colors and all of the clients all became pretty clear to me because I started speaking to specific people about what I was doing because I was a half a step ahead of them. And so just getting started, focus inward first and like getting more clear on your mission and start sharing your process. Marshall, who's in here a lot in this master stream, did exactly that over a year. And we all have done that in our own similar ways, of sharing what we're learning in our process and letting the branding and the funnels and all of that fall in place.
Yeah, I think self-awareness is such a big, it always seems to come back to that on these calls, is like figuring out who you are, because there's so many different routes. And the challenge that I see is like a lot of older generations don't really get it. And it's because when they were growing up, their options were chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. And it was like, you were either a lawyer or a doctor, or like, you were, I don't know, those were like it in terms of successful. And now there's so many different options in terms of the way that you can be successful that a lot of people are afraid to make the wrong choice. So have you guys found yourself pivoting, or have you guys found yourself changing what you're influencing about? Because I found that I've gone through a couple of different things that I've been, which I've made, my kind of my message and I kind of found a little sweet spot for myself. But what was that kind of journey for you in terms of kind of finding what you should actually talk about? Does anyone kind of have any thoughts on that?
I'd like to say that there was always clarity, but there wasn't. Like you're saying, like it's a process, man. And I think that's even as my podcast has grown, that's something, my message there has changed. Like, when I had started that, I was figuring out how to start my own business, education background, all this stuff. And now it's like, okay, I built a business, I built a 6-figure business. Now, how do I scale it to the next level? So even like who I've talked to in that way in terms of interviews has changed, because I want to learn from people that have that different mindset. Like Jeremy was just show recently, and it was a way different interview than the first time he was on, because we're looking at these concepts in a different way. And I think that's what changes is, as we grow and evolve, our mission grows and evolves, and so does what we talk about. Because like I've always been talking about podcasting, but in different ways. First it was producing and running through this whole thing, and then realizing, okay, entrepreneurs don't have time to all run their own podcast. And then it was, looking at guesting and media appearances and how you can use that. So it grows and evolves. It's never like this certain thing, if that makes sense, but it's always very similar in the technology I use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a common thread there, right?
Yeah.
I'd actually like to touch on something too, for me, because I didn't go to a fancy college like Jeremy Slate, so I have to keep things super simple. And if you're looking to make more money, create more influence, be happier, be healthier, be in happy relationships, like you're the average of the 5 people you're around. Like if you want to create more influence, hang around influencers and act like they act. Like it's so simple. If you want to create more wealth, hang around wealthy people. If you want to have happier relationships, hang around people that have happy relationships, not ones that are complaining about their spouse the whole time and that are just Debbie Downers and negative. Like, just for me, it's just where you want to go, be around people that are where you want to be. And it's just everything else falls into place. It's really that simple. Figure out a way to get around those people.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. My computer's about to die, I think, right now. So Hannah, it's probably going to go back to you.
My phone's about to die too.
So let's wrap this bad boy up and let's get out of here, guys. Why don't we? I'm going to hop back on afterwards, but why don't we go around and Jeremy Slate? Why don't you start? Where can we find you and get connected with you?
Yeah, man. So everything on the personal brand side is over at jeremyryanslate.com. I'm the same across all social platforms. And my business site is commandyourbrand.media.
All right, we lost Hector. I think Rob is the host.
Am I? Yes.
Yeah. Where can we find more of you?
So, guys, we do a live TV show every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And you can just check me out on Instagram, Rob Fajardo. Send me a message. And I hope to chat with you guys soon. Thanks for tuning into this master stream.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, you can just reach out. JeremyCadams.com is my website. It's just a little capture page right now. I haven't spent a lot of time in building that out, but if you wanted to reach me directly or reach out to us at unicorninnovations.com. Or Facebook, like normal people. Just add Facebook.
Jeremy Adams, did you mention about the group? Did you talk about the group that you guys had?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Unicorn IQ Hub. I mean, that's a big focus. Thank you for that. Unicorn IQ Hub, we're delivering badass content numerous times a day. We're going all in on building this group and building this company. So if you're looking to grow your business and just watch awesome interviews like Jeremy Slate's interview on Monday, then definitely check out Unicorn IQ Hub.
I love it. We'll link all that stuff up here in the description. Did we get around to everybody? Rob, did you throw up LNB? I need to be careful.
Yes, I did.
All right. And Hannah, did you?
We'll pipe in quick. I am also a real person, and so you are all welcome to send me just a Facebook message and join my group. I talked about just real people starting to live the dream. That is, if you search Dream Life is Real Life, you'll find us, the Facebook group. We can add a link too.
I love it, guys. Well, thank you all for taking some time today. I know that it's I'm just so blessed to get a chance to connect with all 4 of you guys, and the fact that you take some time to hang out. So the rest of you guys have an amazing day. Go impact the world, and we'll see all you guys later. Peace.